Welcome to Who's the Daddy with Alexandra K, the podcast where we talk about all things single mom by choice. Today, I'm joined by Maryssa. You want to say hi, Maryssa?
Yes. Hello.
And I'm your host, Alexandra, and we're going to get into a pretty cool conversation today. So let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, Maryssa, how old were you, or when did you first think about becoming a single mom by choice?
Sure. So I actually have a diagnosis of POI. So as I was dating just in my late 20s, and, that kind of clock started to narrow down and into my 30s, I didn't seriously consider what it might look like until 2022. And then kind of just seeing, financially, I think it was a big part of making sure I was ready in that way. So probably for the last couple of years. And then once I really worked out some of the numbers, and that was my main focus. So I would say 2022, I was really serious about it. And then after that, just kind of took off to, where I am in my journey today.
Okay. Wait, tell us what POI is.
Sure. Yeah. So premature ovarian insufficiency.
I've not heard that one.
So I don't have any eggs. I actually found out about it when I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty rare. I want to say I haven't looked at the recent stat, but 1% of women have it from the last stat I looked at. So yeah, I've kind of known my journey was going to be hard at 14. And so the reality of it and just watching my friends around me as we got older have, get married, have babies, really just kind of kickstarted oh, wow, all of a sudden you look and you're 35 and you're like, all right, I need to see what I need to do. So, yeah.
So tell us where you are in your journey right now.
Sure. So after going through the financial process and ensuring I was prepared in that way, I just started doing research, podcasts, books, just looking around me for different REs in the area. Thankfully, at that time, I lived in the Bay Area. So there was a good amount of options from San Francisco to San Ramon and, around. So after I did that, I was able to find an egg donor agency. That was really hard. Just kind of navigating those things really took me a chunk. I would say 2023, that was really my chunk of what am I looking for? What do I need to do? How much will this really cost? So yeah, 2023, I found my egg donor agency. 2024, the egg donor did the retrieval, and by August, we had embryos.
Wow. Oh, wait, no, you need to break down that, all of that, because I'm typically used to talking to single moms by choice or aspiring single moms by choice, mainly about choosing sperm donors, but you had to choose an egg donor and a sperm donor. So tell me, I would have asked only what was your criteria for choosing a sperm donor, but you had to choose an egg donor. So what was your criteria for both of them?
Sure. So, options, I'm mixed. I am half Mexican, Hawaiian, Samoan, and I have some Scottish in there. So, my sister doesn't look like me. She doesn't have brown skin. So so in that I wanted to prioritize, of course, ideally I wanted to have Hawaiian, but that narrows it down a lot, so my options, and when I say Hawaiian, I just mean it would have been nice to have a little bit of that. And I had to let go of my attachment to some of those things. My eye color, right? And both my sister and I've been blessed to have colored eyes. So it's been really nice. That's kind of a signature trait for us. And so I wanted color eyes. I wanted some, melanin for the skin, right? And then in the balance of choosing the sperm donor, I also was having to see just different things I wanted to prioritize. Same things, physical characteristics, but also, a little bit of education and kind of balancing those two out. So the egg donor that I chose, she is a Filipino descent, and so Filipino and white. And so there was this fear of having a child that didn't look like me, because if I chose maybe a white donor, I was afraid that was going to highlight her white traits, right? So there was a lot of thought that went into that.
A white sperm donor. Okay.
Correct. So because that was okay to kind of flex one of them, like, you know, I have a lot of mix in me. So yeah, that process is actually honestly probably the hardest process. But I was able to find her, which I was really happy about. So once I nailed that down, there's honestly, you start to realize how much of a business it is, and also how much less of criteria, or like, I don't know what the right word is, but for choosing sperm, you have different sperm banks, right? And then within those, you like, there's just such a vast amount. And so and then you get notifications that there's new donors, right? That fit your criteria. So, you know, so in that, I was able to choose someone who was a Hispanic descent, who was Mexican.
So I was going to ask, is choosing an egg donor similar to choosing a sperm donor? Do you have conversations with the actual egg donor?
Okay, so yes.
Because we don't ever speak to the sperm donor, ever.
Yeah.
Well, if you use a cryobank or a sperm bank, but.
So yes, we did meet.
Oh my goodness.
And that was really cool for me. And she so happened to live maybe 3-4 hours from where I was in the Bay Area. So that made it really convenient for when she had to go for appointments and things like that. I didn't think of those things when I initially chose her. But so yeah, the agency we went through, all these agencies are very expensive, right? Yeah. But I really liked this particular aspect that we had to meet or speak, and it was via, it was virtually.
Oh, they had that criteria for you.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So it was a quick talk. It was a little bit awkward, but at the end of the day, I was really grateful for that. And, a part of me, it was weird as it got closer to that talk. And it's just the intro talk. She hadn't done any of her appointments or anything like that yet. It was really just to see, does she feel comfortable with me? Do I feel comfortable with her?
Yeah.
So it was maybe 15. I think we ended up talking for like 20. We started to find some commonalities in there. And so the lady from the agency, she basically introed us and then took her camera off. And then we were able to chat a little bit. And then she came back on and, kind of exited us out.
Oh, wow.
And she actually emailed me, maybe December time or January time, just to check in and see if I had a transfer or anything. So I thought that was really nice.
Wow.
Yes,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So has she donated to anyone before?
She actually was a surrogate before. So that was her first experience donating her eggs. But she carried for another family.
Okay.
And then she had her own child as well. One child.
Okay. So I always ask, what were your IVF stats? So like how many eggs retrieved, how many fertilized, if you did PGS testing, stuff like that.
Yes. So she had 25 retrieved. I think we got 11 fertilized, and ultimately 5 5 embryos. Yeah. Yeah. Healthy embryos, I should say.
So you did PGS testing? Yeah,
we did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Or I did.
So when do you plan on transferring, you don't have to share if you don't want to, but.
No. Yeah. I think that's really what I want to do. Right. Is like open that up. So I actually had a transfer in October.
Okay.
And that was my best grade embryo. So it was a 6AA embryo, and I transferred, and unfortunately it was not successful. No. So it did not implant. And I was going through a lot at that time. So my mom had actually suddenly passed on the 4th of October.
I remember,
so just 3 days after. Yeah. So I don't know, there's a lot of, right. It's not anyone can't give you a direct answer, right. But I will say after that, and after taking some months to grieve, I wanted a little bit more of a personalized RE experience. And in my search prior to all of this, I had listened a lot to Dr. Amy. Egg Whisperer is one of her podcasts. And she practices so close to where I live. So I was like, you know what? I would like more answers than just I'm a statistic, right? There's a 50 whatever percent chance at my age that it would implant. Let's just go into it again. I didn't really feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I have, I only have, so now I had three embryos, I had 3 embryos. And so I have 2 more, and I just don't want to play with the statistics of it. At the end of the day, it's going to happen by chance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to happen. But so basically I reached out.
Did you transfer 3 embryos?
No, just 1.
Oh, okay.
So I have 2 more. Yeah.
Got it.
But the answers that I got of just like why I did an implant, sure, it may have been the grief, right? So you probably have a lot going on with your hormones at that time. But I just wanted more. And so I reached out to Dr. Amy and I met with her, and she conducted some testing that was very optional. She wasn't pushy about it. It was very optional, but I just wanted to see if there was anything. So we did, endometrio is what she calls it. And so it's like these tests to test microbes in the uterine lining. So we did a biopsy, and I had good bacteria and bad bacteria. Okay. And so we had to get on antibiotics. And she said there's a chance, right? Like that bad bacteria could prevent implantation. Yeah. So it's just nice to have it. It's not 100%, right?
Yeah, but you want someone that's going to like peek behind every door, right?
Yep.
Let's try and eliminate anything that would keep you from getting pregnant. So
yes.
So you feel like she was a good option.
Oh yes. So what I did though is, right, I have my embryos there with the clinic that I went through. Okay. And so I didn't want, I still wanted that, but I just wanted a consult. And Dr. Amy, she does things a little bit unconventional, and I like that. It's like she's letting you know off the top, what you're getting into. And so we're doing more of a consult. So basically conducting this testing and taking all of those results to my actual clinic, or, doing the additional testing that we need to do in the information that we need for the next transfer. So I feel really good about that. Yeah. And right now where I'm at in my journey is because I moved and I did those things, I wanted to actually hold off because I had a lot of changes going on. So possibly in July, I could try another transfer. But I first have to redo that testing, because you want to retest to make sure that antibiotics worked. And then now that there's this big time gap, now we kind of got to go through that process again. Yeah. So and then we want to do that a month prior to transfer. Okay.
So is Dr. Amy a reproductive endocrinologist?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Okay. I don't know if I've heard of her. I should, but you said she's called the Egg Whisperer?
The Egg Whisperer.
Okay, I need to look her up. So how do you think, so people always feel like, or would like to know, like, what kind of support you need going through a process like this. So you're still in, we could say the beginning stages, but you've been like in this for years at this point. You know what I mean? So it's only beginning stages because you don't have a baby in your arms yet. But like, what kind of support do you think that someone looking to go down this path? And I love that you have a very unique story, because people think single mom by choice and they think that they chose this path for one reason, and you clearly gave a very medical reason as to why you're choosing this path right now. And then also that people use double donors or have double donor IVF. So what kind of support do you think is really necessary in a process like the one you're going through?
I think that's going to vary for each person, right? I actually had my mother living with me as I was going through this entire process. So, it really truly wasn't until I lost her that it also put me at an emotional pause of, I don't know. It was weird. I was always doing it as a single mom, and my mom was disabled. So she had a stroke. So she had some cognitive delays. But she was my support. Yeah. And I think I didn't fully realize that, because there was, in all honesty, it's very difficult to be a caregiver for a parent. And so when I lost her, I felt more alone than I had been in the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I think emotional support, and
Yeah.
I've had my sister, she just had a baby. Her baby's 16 months old now.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my sister, I had my best
Mm-hmm.
friend, and honestly, I'm really close to my extended family, but my extended family doesn't even know that I went through this. I think a big part of it is it's a long process, number
Yeah.
one. And, even speaking to my very close friends about it, and confiding in them about my choice. It was just a lot of explaining, and not in a bad way. They're curious.
Yeah.
But I really think that having a select few people that that you can rely on. My
Mm-hmm.
best friend came with me to the transfer.
Oh.
And sometimes you don't know the team that you have behind you, right? I didn't even think to ask somebody to come.
Yeah.
I thought for somebody to pick me up, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think I needed support during the transfer. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very like black and white sometimes.
Me
And
too.
so she was like, "No, I'm going to come with you." And I was like,
Oh,
"Okay, but you could also just pick me up."
like inside the doctor's office? Inside? Okay.
And she was so emotional, like as I don't know if everybody has
Really?
this experience, but you have it on the camera as the
Mm-hmm.
doctor is
Yeah.
implanting. So my friend is videotaping with one hand, and she's holding my hand, and you hear in the video, she's like, "Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful."
That is so funny because that's like what my doctor was saying. And I'm just like, my transfer was at like 7 a.m. Well, with Sloan was at like 7 a.m. I'm like, I just want to get back home and go back to bed. I'm tired. I have to do these PO injections soon. Like,
Yes.
so
Honestly, those are the worst part.
I'm like, all the injections were, you know what? I feel like people like psych themselves out with the PO injections.
Yes, it is. It's
I
a
think if
mental.
you like take the weight off whatever side you're injecting and just like go for it, they're
Yeah.
fine. I know that you said that you knew about your medical diagnosis at 14, but was the decision difficult to still move forward doing using double donor?
Yes. So prior to that, I tried some holistic approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I was fortunate enough to live in the Bay Area. So there was a well-renowned holistic doctor, Chinese medicine doctor, that I went to for acupuncture, but also other things. I honestly couldn't even put a name to
Mm-hmm.
what was going on. There was cupping, right? We
Yeah.
did some cupping. And so she wanted me to go very frequently. And my first test results, I was really at that point, that must have been, gosh, 20, I think that was 2022.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it for 4 months. And because you can't physically see something
Yeah.
or see in the result, I did take one blood test for the FHS, FSH.
FSH. Yeah. FSH.
Yeah,
Yeah.
FSH. And because that's my number, that is just through the roof. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's why we know. I never even got checked for eggs or anything. Like I couldn't even go to a fertility specialist because they see my FSH number, and
Wow. So
it's
no
just
ultrasound. They've never looked at your ovaries? Ugh,
no,
I would
not
want to know.
until I know. I know. But it was just, yeah, the blood work it was so telling. So it was hard to see. So the very first treatment that I did with her for some of the acupuncture, the cupping, and the other Chinese, approaches,
Mm-hmm.
Chinese medicine approaches, I did see a slight decrease in my result. But then after that, it rose back again. And
Mm.
there was a very strict diet, and things like that. So it was a little bit hard. And I don't think I was as invested as I had been come 2023, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that was kind of just different things that I had tried. So I didn't get really serious until 2023 and 2024, when I was like, okay, wow, my sister and my best friend had a
Mm-hmm.
baby around this in the same year. So I think that was kind of my push too,
Yeah.
of, just wanting
Let's figure
to
this out.
kickstart
Yeah.
things.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard.
Interesting. So I wanted to actually acknowledge how you have a very unique story, and I love how I think people often think that this is just one straight path. You want to just be a single mom and you don't want to compromise on certain things, but your story clearly shows us that that's not the only reason people choose this path. And so I love that you've shared that part of your story. What's a double donor? And I think that your story kind of explained that, but if you want to tell exactly what a double donor is, you can.
Sure. So it's using using sperm from someone I may or may not know,
Right.
and then using an egg from someone I may or may not know, but I carry the child. Sometimes, then you could go into the surrogate route at
Right.
that same time too, right? And then raise the child. But for me, kind of thought of it as like this joint triangle of support for this child. And I wanted to contribute in that way. And I know that there's also some women that are not able to do that. And so, yeah, triple, donor is also a thing
Takes
too.
three.
Right? But
it takes three.
But yeah, so that was kind of my contribution. And I really, a lot of people, of course, their follow-up question is always, would you adopt? And I think that when you're in it, then I don't have the capacity to answer that question. Right now I'm focused on using double donor to pursue my journey. And this is the path that I really want to take. Yeah. And I've had to sacrifice I've had to accept and grieve my process of not being able to, produce eggs and have my, genetically. So in terms of redefining, I mean, I don't know what name we might give it, but that's kind of how I see it, is just this triangular system of support.
Yeah.
But it is hard, right? Because the child might not necessarily see those two other donors, you know? So I don't know what that experience, and I've listened to podcasts of donor children, right? And tried to hear their story and hear their side. And I've done my best going into this, trying to be as knowledgeable as I can, and, be open for this child to explore whatever they choose to explore, when they get older, and try and make this story as real, but also as compassionate, right? Yeah. That's at the end of the day, that's what kids want. Or
people, in general, they want to know that they were
people,
that they were intentionally thought of. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I was gonna ask, did you ever consider asking your sister to be your egg donor?
I did.
Me and my sisters look identical. Well, other people think we look identical. I don't think we look identical. So I feel like I probably would have maybe attempted to go down that path if it was open, but...
Yeah, no, I 100% did. And I think it's a little bit hard to, and so I laugh because I'm like, yeah, sis, you wouldn't give me any of your eggs. So, I had to like spend X amount of money to like get some from a stranger. But no, I respect her decision. Yeah. She's 5 years younger than me. So like I said, she has just started her
building her family,
motherhood journey, And so, and then a year or two before that, she had just gotten married. And I love her. I love my brother-in-law. But there's a joint decision there now. When we were younger and my sister knew about it, we had talked about the possibility of that happening. And then real life happens, and it's kind of like, maybe that wouldn't be her choice. And I respected that. But I will say, I did have my first cousin. Unfortunately, she is 5 years older than me. And my clinic, I'm not sure if all clinics do it, but you can't get eggs from a donor over 30.
What?
Yeah. So
that is crazy.
My cousin was not, well, my cousin is also 40. So there's also then some things I would have considered, but she was so ready. She was so ready to donate for me. Yeah. And that kind of love, I appreciate. Yeah, and my sisters, supported me in other ways. But yes, I did have women around me that were supportive with that.
Good. Yeah. All right. So now let's switch gears. We're going to get into solicited advice. So this is the portion of the podcast where we get a listener question and we offer real unfiltered advice. So today's question comes from one of our listeners, and they ask... All right, so they say, Dear Alexandra, I'm approaching 30 and have always dreamed of becoming a mom. I have a decent job and can save a little each month, but as I start looking into the cost of IUI and IVF, I'm realizing just how expensive this journey could be. While I want to move forward, I don't want to completely drain my savings just to have a baby, especially knowing that parenting itself comes with a whole new set of financial responsibilities. I've considered taking my time to save more, but I also don't want to wait too long and risk facing more challenges down the line. Are there smart financial strategies for making single motherhood by choice more affordable? How do other women manage the cost without putting themselves in a tough financial spot? Oh, and she signed ready but worried.
Oh, yeah, I can relate. I can relate. I think, there is no single path financially, even what I
Yeah.
learned. So before my journey, and the reason I started is I had paid off my student loans during the pandemic, and
Mm.
and no credit card debt. I was able to purchase my own condo.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm really doing these adult things and I think
I'm
I'm
an
ready.
adult.
Like I can do it. And so, other than my mortgage, I had no debt.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I had been able to save like an emergency fund
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So that's something to consider. I'm very big into budgeting. And so I had budgeted for several years and kind of worked out a few numbers. But one huge expense that I have that maybe she doesn't have to explore was the egg donor
Mm-hmm.
portion.
Yeah.
So even freezing eggs, right? Like these things are so expensive. I don't think
Yeah.
you're going to get around that. But
Mm-hmm.
ways to leverage. So if you have a good credit score,
Yeah.
right? Even being able to leverage low or no interest debt
Mm-hmm.
is how I did a lot of it. So, I have these big numbers, 35,000 for the IVF treatment for the
Wow.
egg donor that I had to
Mm-hmm.
pay for. And then I had 23,000 just to the donor agency. And then,
Wow.
well, so the donor agency and then the portion that the donor was going to get, that came out of that
Wait,
kind
so
of
talk
bucket
about
of
that.
23.
So you pay the agency, and from what you pay the agency, they pay your donor, your egg donor,
Yes.
and she gets paid for donating, or she gets paid like some, because you know how like they say that you can't purchase embryos. Like you cannot trade money for an embryo. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So are they paying her, and is this, I guess, similar to like surrogacy, how the woman is paid to carry a baby?
Yes,
Okay.
she's paid to give me the eggs.
Got
and we
it.
go
Okay.
through lawyers and
Okay.
things like that. So that's also included in the 23
Okay.
was the those expenses.
Okay.
But one thing I didn't, so then I'm like, okay, 23, I actually applied for a personal loan. I shopped around. So usually your clinic will have like someone they go through.
Mm-hmm.
So I went ahead and checked that interest rate for the amount that I needed. And I'm like, ooh, 12%, that's a little steep.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went to like credit unions or different, and again, I've had, I've been fortunate to have good debt or rather good, credit score. And so just really shopping around and asking questions because I didn't want to, like the listener said, I didn't want to dip into my savings. I wanted, or my retirement.
Yeah.
And when I looked on forums and I was asking like, how in the heck do people pay for this?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would honestly leverage any debt that you can, because all debt is not bad debt, especially when you can think of it as an investment in yourself, in your future.
In your future, yeah.
So for me, I think 30, I remember in my mindset when I was 30, I was still thinking like, who knows, I might meet somebody and I want to give it some time. I dated during that time pretty heavy, trying to see look for a compatible partner that, I would want to raise a child with. So that's kind of my advice there too, is 30 is not old, right? If you are, a little bit afraid of time, because that is always going to be, as women, something we have to consider,
right.
Egg freezing, and then just again, leveraging debt. And I'm not saying get into debt, but depending on your savings and your retirement, oftentimes you can also get I did end up using one of my retirement funds and taking that out because I had an exemption because it went straight to medical expenses.
Okay.
So I had to pay taxes, of course, but honestly, for me, the monthly amount that I had from those two big loans, I didn't like. I mean, I could make it, but I didn't like that. And so, like she said, there's also something to consider, that I need to be prepared for when I do become a mom.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be drained just trying to get there.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I always tell people, look at your insurance policy and really ask questions, because when I started IVF, I was working at Amazon, and Amazon starts benefits on day one. So, and I had been working there for years before I even looked into the process. Like, I had been looking into single mom by choice for years, and I had never explored what fertility benefits Amazon offered me. So when I finally moved, I purchased a home, and I said, I'm going to schedule a consultation. That's when I started looking, and we had a benefit called Progeny. I don't know if they still have Progeny or they use another company, but Progeny will offer you like smart cycles. And so like to purchase sperm is 1/4 of a cycle. And then to do stems, like your stimulations for IVF is 1/4 of a cycle. And then to do an embryo transfer is 1/4 of a cycle. And I believe you get 2 cycles. And so you can use it however you'd like to use it. And they pay you back for the sperm vials. I think that I paid for a vial of Menopure, and that's about it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's one thing I didn't have. And so that's good. Like 2 different, perspectives. Yeah. I would have loved to have. So I learned about Progeny and Carrot, I think is another one,
Carrot
at least
is
in the
one.
Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in the Bay Area, we have Silicon Valley.
Yes.
So I was, the fertility clinics, and even when I was shopping for fertility clinics, I was just kind of, hey, can I change insurance? I even asked I worked for a small company, but the boss, I actually had asked her just, asked, is this an option to explore fertility benefits? And they did explore it a little bit, and we had conversations, but ultimately it wasn't in the time frame that I needed anyways. But yeah, if you have insurance, of course, tap into that. I forgot that. That wasn't my experience. I was not covered for anything. So everything I've paid has been out of pocket.
Yeah. Wow. Before we wrap things up, I want to ask you a question that almost every single mom by choice hears at some point. It's the title of the podcast. I want to know what your response is, or what your response would be when you're asked, who's the daddy? We're always asked. It always comes up. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. I think about that question. The answer to that question depends on who's asking. As I'm also a very forward person.
I am too, but I feel like when I think it just has to like be the right place, the right time, because I'm an open book. I share everything on Instagram. Like I've shared my story. I've given birth on YouTube, like all of it. So it's like, I remember when I announced that I was pregnant with Sloan, I was probably 8 months pregnant. I hadn't told anyone, no extended family, not really told any friends. And I posted, because I had gotten a new mom car, and I posted like a little boomerang showing my car and then showing my belly bump. And no one paid attention to the car. I was excited about the car, but no one paid attention to the car. And so somebody DM'd me. And this is not on the Life with Alexandra K Instagram. This is like on my very personal Instagram. And I think they said like, who to pappy or something like that. And I was like, oh my goodness. I don't think I responded. But that was my very first time being asked. And I think now it's just like, when I'm asked, it's mainly like at a doctor's appointment. Oh, do you want to put dad on the? And I'm like, they're donor conceived. Can you just put that in their file? They're donor conceived.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
So
what do you think you'd say?
Okay, so if let's just say, right, in my future, when I have my child and we're getting in the car and someone other, oh, who's the dad? Honestly, I'm gonna be like, a generous man.
Very generous.
A generous man. Like. And family, the family and close friends, that is going to, I think, when I'm pregnant, I'll get into that story, and they'll want to know, they'll be curious. And I'll want to explain that to them. But again, who's asking, right? So if my child is asking, I've already thought of like creating this book of, the donor profile that I have, right? And just giving them a visual. I'm a visual learner. So I made sure that I had pictures of both donors. And I want to eventually in that book also put a picture of me and the child, right? Yeah. Where it's this process that mama had to take to get you, but I want them to be knowledgeable about that. So I want them to know who their dad is. And honestly, anyone else asking, it's really none of their business.
That's how I feel.
It's my choice. It's my choice to disclose that. Again, that's going to depend on who's asking. But if some random stranger is asking me while I'm at the store, I might just say something like that. Like, it's a generous man. He's a good man. man.
He's very generous. I think that people don't even imagine that. I don't say that they don't imagine that women are choosing sperm donors or to have babies through donor conception. But I think that they have this like picture of what these women look like. And it's not someone in the same grocery store as them. Like I've had someone say they either commented on an Instagram post or DM'd me and they're like, I've never seen a Black woman who used a sperm donor. Well, how would you know? Because all of the people on the street that I see, I have no clue how they conceive their kids.
Are you asking all of these people
exactly.
when you see them on the street?
So it's just so interesting because it's like, well, I mean, I get what you mean that you didn't know that someone who chose to use a sperm donor, I guess, would be in your proximity, I guess. But to say you've never met one, a single mom by choice, is just inaccurate because
and I've also had friends, or I've had friends, but made connections through some of the forums and things like that too. And going back to the question about about the emotional support, I found on Instagram a community that even started how I started following you. I needed to see women who were doing it, to know that it was possible. Like I felt it in my heart, but when you don't see it around and they're not open about it, right? You don't know. So like, I want to see what it could look like. I want to see if it's manageable. And I think ultimately people don't know the story behind that sometimes. So as if you don't know the person and you're curious, it's okay to be curious, but also approach that with respect because your biases, even me as a brown woman, right? Like your biases may come out just by asking that question to someone that you do not know because you have a preconceived perception of what it should look like. So there's some consideration I think that needs to be in that question, which is why I might, be a little sassy in my response.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because that's why I started sharing my journey, because when I always tell people I started thinking about becoming a single mom by choice when I was 26. And I took years, because it was like, oh, okay, I'll look through some profiles. And I'm like, nah. Then I'll look through some, like, no. So I was looking at 26 and I would just go back and forth, not really knowing whether it was something I wanted to do. But when I finally made the decision, it's like, I didn't find anyone who was doing what I was doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would Google single mom on purpose. I would look up single mom on purpose, and I would only see these like older women. I never saw anyone in their 20s. I never saw anyone in their 30s. But I know single moms by choice in their 20s. So it's very interesting that, and I think that like different generations kind of look at it differently.
Yes.
Like the reasoning behind why they become single moms by choice. Some people feel very empowered, and some people feel like this is a decision that they have to make because they're coming to the end of like their fertility. So it's just interesting to always hear like the commentary in the background of these decisions.
Yes. Yeah. And it's happening even with my new employer. That was one of the first questions I asked, was, do you cover? And I think that's also another good route, for a future episode or any questions, in the future, is like also talking to our employers about it. Because if we're not talking about it, this is happening, right? Women are being affected by infertility at an alarming rate, whether you're a single mom, whether you're married, right? Like, so I think employers almost don't know. So it was really cool to just hear, and this was before I had arrived in the new state that I'm working in. And they said, oh, we don't right now cover any infertility, but the HR department said that they're going to take that to their meeting and they're going to discuss that for future benefits.
Yeah.
So, just being a part of that change and even just bringing it up. And I hope that things like this, these platforms can open up that for women to not feel shame, because that could come with it, but talking about it with one another and also being open about it with other people that just might not be familiar.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, thanks for joining me today, Maryssa.
Yes, thanks for having me.
I want to thank Maryssa for joining me on Who's the Daddy with Alexandra K. And I want to thank all of you guys for listening today. If you know anyone who would be interested in listening to this episode about Maryssa's story, double donor conception, please share it with them. And please continue choosing the best life for you.